Hi, this is Craig Urquhart, and welcome to Berlin Conversations. Today I have a dear friend, Daniel Unger, who is a set designer for the stage, for theater, opera, musicals, and he's here to share with us what it is to be a set designer. But my first question always is, how did you end up in Berlin?
Well, my first Berlin time was actually in 1997, and I came to visit a friend of my sister, who I knew from looking after his dog. So he was going on a world travel. He also brought me actually to theater, because he was an actor and he was the little brother of my sister's ex-boyfriend by that time. So, and he just had this dog, which I knew from my childhood, and he was always going to long trips, and he asked me to look after his dog. So I moved into his flat when I was 16, 17.
Oh my gosh, and where did you come from?
It was in my hometown, but it was really like a big step for me to move out, because I come from Bavaria, and then I'm a very conservative Catholic, looked after home, and then to have the opportunity to move out from my parents' place for like a month in summer while still being at school was a great opportunity to do.
Being 16 in Berlin at that time must have been quite fun for you.
No, that was in Berlin, it was in Bavaria.
Oh, I see, okay. Sorry.
So, and then we continued that tradition. Whenever he went to a trip, I would have the opportunity to be in his flat. And when he moved to Berlin, I took advantage of that too, and that was in 1997. And I immediately fell in love with Berlin, and I thought that's going to be the city one day I will live here. And then I moved, after my study actually, I moved permanently here, or like kind of permanently, how permanent you can be as a set designer.
Yeah. So. And how did you get into the theater?
Also via Andreas, actually. He was, as I just said to you, he was an actor and theater maker in my hometown. And so when I was in his flat, I always met his friends, and I had very, very interesting talks in his kitchen. And then I went to see every show in the theater in my hometown. And it's also funny because just like last weekend I was at the Faust Prize giving in Kassel, and there was like, they honored Roberto Giulli for his life work, or for himself, and he's a big theater making in Recklinghausen. No Theater in der Ruhr, he founded that, and that was a touring theater, and they also came every year to my hometown, which is a really small city.
What's the name of it?
It's Erlangen, it's close to Nuremberg in Bavaria.
Okay, it is small, isn't it?
It has a university though, so it's not a bad place to go, but if you grow up there, it's also a good place to live at some point.
I think we all have that experience.
Yeah, definitely.
So did you study theater at the university?
No, actually not. So, because now in back perspective, it's kind of stupid, but I wanted to. It was not on my list, not on my spectrum to. Like, I didn't have the idea to study theater. I always wanted to go into art directly, like sculpture or installation, and then I couldn't do that because I got operation on my wrists. Got broken. They didn't broke, but I had like operation at the right wrist, and then I couldn't work manually. And then I thought I would shift to something. I can't live on art, so I will do something practical. And this was I choose to be an architect. So because I thought I still can work with space, because that's what I can do very good, and a great visual and spatial vision, I would say. So I was going into architecture.
Okay, so out of architecture you became a set designer.
Yeah, I mean, it's very linked actually, like the work itself. So I studied interior architecture, with in Germany deals, it's not so much decorating, it deals with existing structures. So when you change a factory into housing, or housing into a hotel, or these things, like exhibition is a big section as well, hotel is a big section, shops. So a lot of public spaces more than private spaces, and whenever people go to a shop or restaurant and you try to create an experience within the space, and that is something, or to tell a story from the background of the history of the space, if you deal with exhibition design, or you focus on a theme and you create like a scenography around it, which is applied spatially. So it's actually, my study was very linked to set design. So I didn't know that when I started that. But it turned out to be, so I benefited a lot in my career now from my architecture study.
And how did you end up getting into set design?
Also man again. So I met a set designer, we're still friends, when I was in my mid of my studies. And I fell in love with him, and I was visiting him. He was living in Vienna at that time. And
it's amazing what love can do.
Yeah, right. Right. So, and then he was taking me he was working at the Burg Theater, and he took me to one of the rehearsals there. And that was a very good moment for me, because that was my first contact behind the scene with like a real theater. And I liked that a lot. And then I thought, what he can do, I can do too. So, and then I kind of, this was growing the idea to go back to theater. Then.
And so what was your first job?
I mean, first, because I'm German and Bavarian, I first finished my study, because I was very good at that too. And I also was a bit afraid of going into that. And then my first own project actually was 2008 in Switzerland, in Bern. Like that was my first own set design. So I used to work as an assistant, and I was very lucky. Was working in Jena, and the director took me directly with to do the set for her next project back in Bern at that time. And then I was free as well, so I just moved to Bern for like 6 weeks. And also built the set by myself, which you do not normally do as a set designer. But since I was also very practical, and I also was working in a wood workshop before I went on my study, so I could also build the set, and that was what she was looking for as well, because it was a very, very small, like off theater project. So the workshop was underneath the roof in the theater. I only could do it in the night, because during the day there were rehearsals. So I worked on the set design from 10 till like 1 o'clock in the morning. Then, but it was it was a really, really good experience.
So you do opera, you do theater, and you do musicals, right?
Yeah.
And you recently just completed a project in Oslo and Lyon, a co-production?
Yeah, it's long ago actually. It's 2 years, but it's still running. So it's supposed to.
Still contemporary.
It was quite a success actually. So it's supposed to. This is not yet signed, so I'm not gonna say. But it's going to be the next year in 21 and in 22 in different houses in Europe and in the States too.
Oh wow!
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed on that. What is the project?
It's La Cenerentola from Rossini.
Fun.
I did it together with Stefan, so we shared the stage together, and it was a very interesting experience. And we did a very, very good attempt, because we managed to like break this very Pretty Woman-like fairy tale up into something very modern and contemporary. Even so, it doesn't look like it, but the storytelling itself, it's very, very modern, and I like that a lot, because it's not so gender, like the innocent women have to wait for the man until she gets finally saved, so she can do it by herself. So
that's a new twist on Cinderella.
Yes, definitely. And it is a dreadful story by itself. No? Yeah. Music is fantastic, but always if you do opera, you have this amazing music, but the story is most of the time like very, very like back in time. And actually some of the stories you shouldn't tell anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But you still have to do it because music is so nice.
And what other houses have you worked in?
I just did, I had opening last Friday in Chemnitz.
Oh, really?
In a theater. We did a piece, like we wrote it by ourselves. And it was about utopoly, like a utopolist thinking process. So we tried to engage the audience in the process of coming up with new positive ideas for the future, which is very important in Germany, especially in
Chemnitz.
Especially in Chemnitz. So it was part of a festival which took place for the 30 years of Coming Down the Wall. And it was a long process. We had like 6 weeks rehearsal time, and we started with that a year ago when we did another project in Chemnitz in spring, and then we already started to work on that project. So, and that's just ended on Friday.
And was it in the Opera House there in Chemnitz?
No, it's in, I more like to do theater as well.
Okay.
And then theater, also Chemnitz, it was the first 2 projects we did there. Normally if you're a young team, my director I work the most with is from Texas. So also he comes from out of the system, so he will establish now, so that's pretty good, and we are a really good team together, but we did it on a very small stage, so which for that project was ideal to do, because the setup was like we had a board game in the middle, like Monopoly, which is like a symbol for the capitalist system, and we try to overcome that while the actors play together with the audience. So the audience was lined up around the stage basically, but they were sitting on the stage more or less. So there was only first row for everyone, and they also were involved. So at some point, and you couldn't have done that on a big stage.
No,
because you wouldn't have the intimacy.
No,
in the room.
It's just interesting in Chemnitz because the theatrical, that area where the opera house is and everything is the only intact area from before the war. Because Chemnitz was so heavily bombed and it.
Yeah, but they still have an opera house.
That's what I mean, which is beautiful, yeah.
And They just also won the prize with the Götterdämmerung for best regie.
Oh, really?
Actually,
incredible. Yeah, I've done some work with that house, and it's interesting,
It's an interesting place.
It is.
It's very underrated and very, very special to work there. So when we got commissioned with 2 projects, I was actually very happy to work. Because I had some prejudices as well.
Yeah, of course.
So of course, and when I tell my friends, are we going to Chemnitz? Everyone's like,
Well, for our listeners, viewers may not understand that Chemnitz is a rather large city that was formerly known as Karl-Marx-Stadt. And it's also, lately, it's been the scene of some very far-right activity, which doesn't really help the reputation of the city.
No, and now it's kind of like marked with that label. So, and they really try to overcome it. They also applied now to become Europe Cultural Capital for 2022 or 21.
It's kind of sad what a small minority of people can do.
Yeah, but I think if they, paradox-wise, if that wouldn't have happened, I mean, the chances to become cultural capital of Europe is now much higher, because it's in the focus, and the city also would benefit a lot from that, and having another image as well, which is because it's a minority always, and they fuck it up, and that's not fair.
No, it's not.
There's a lot of nice people, and actually you could see that even in spring when I went there first, everyone wants to talk about it. When you go on a taxi, taxi drivers ask you where you're from, and they immediately start to defend the city. And it's cool of one hand, but the other one, you shouldn't have to do it.
No, you shouldn't.
You shouldn't have to do it, right? No. So this is nothing.
So it's great that you're working there and helping that. So what does a set design? What is the process of designing a theater piece or an opera piece, or how do you begin? Does the director come to you, or the?
Yeah, most of the time I get commissioned with something, because the director gets a piece, and then the director chooses who he wants to work with costume and stage-wise. With Brian, since we work together for so long, we also compile things together, or we come up with projects together like that. But it's mainly based on the piece as well. So when I get commissioned with something, I start from the text. So the text, I see myself applying or making something visible with the set, which is part of the text but not part of the something which is within the text without being said. So for instance, we did A Soldier's Tale, and the set I came up with was like a hamster wheel. Do you say hamster wheel?
Yeah.
Something like that. Not correct. It was lying on the floor, but it was about being on a journey and searching for something, but not being able to reach it. So you're more like a treadmill. You're more, and I wanted to make that visible, because he's always on a journey.
Right. Yeah.
And in marching, and also in the music, you have always these marching thing, and then it becomes more like a Spieluhr, how do you say? Like a
game?
No, these little things which turn around and make music.
Oh.
What is the English word for that? With the ballerina turning.
Yeah.
A
top? I don't know. I know what you mean.
You know what I mean. Yeah. It's moving, but it's not going anywhere.
Right, yeah.
So,
Carousel or something.
Like a carousel.
Yeah.
So it's a repetitive pattern of movement, and I wanted to display that because he's not learning. He will fail, and he won't get anywhere, even though he's moving all the time.
Right.
So to translate or to translate something which is not sad, but it's feel like you feel within the piece, and for that you need to dive into the piece to understand the core, to see what is being negotiated about, what are the conflicts, what are the characters, and how they deal with their problems, and how you can enhance that or show a different side of it within the stage design. So, yeah.
And then you come up with this idea, and then you speak. Does the director have a say in your set designs?
It's a teamwork.
It's
always a teamwork. Even though you work together or against, it's always a teamwork. Especially if you work against. If you come up with an idea, and then the director doesn't like it, and then you say, "Why don't you like it? That's a great idea." No, because it's mine. And then he comes in and have another idea, and then you merge and fuse it, and it comes up something which both of sides. I mean, that's what I really like about opera and theater, because it's not something like I sit down and make a painting by myself, which is just me. Then theater is like a group thing. So
it's a collaborative effort.
It's a collaborating. It's also why I like drama or theater sets a little bit more, because then when you start rehearsing, normally the set is not yet built. It's in the workshop being built while you're rehearsing, and even though theaters don't like it, but this still gives you the opportunity to adjust some things if actors have a good idea. Sometimes they do have good ideas, and then they bring that in, and you're able to incorporate that within the design, and then even the result is something else which what you started. In opera, it's much harder to achieve something like that, because it's just a different process to work. You hand in a year before, and normally when you start rehearsing, everything is already built. And to change then something, it's almost impossible. You can always forward things and leave things, but to add something becomes very, very difficult, because the structure is not made for that. So, and in theater and drama, you have a little bit more freedom and flexibility with it. Officially not, but you can you can also do in opera, but it's just like it's also more expensive, and there's always a money issues.
There's always a money issue.
If you change something while you my director said a funny, I don't know who came up with that quote, but he said like making theater is like building a plane with 40 people while flying in the air already.
Yeah.
And you just construct
I always say there's always more drama backstage than there is on stage in opera houses. Yes.
Sometimes it is. I mean, there's also fun working in drama, because that's our job, right?
So, and then you give the design to a workshop, or you said you built your own sets at one point, but now you give it to a workshop?
The theater normally in Germany, like the system works, like they do have own workshops. Some of them are small, some of them are more professional than others. So it depends what I can design also on the ability of the house most of the time. So with Soldier's Tale, I first made a very, very complicated, very small machine, because we didn't have a lot of money. But normally in Germany, it's a material budget, so you don't have to pay the work. So I came up with something very small, but very, very complicated to build. And they weren't able to construct it. So I had to simplify it, which in the end was also good, because with this process, other things came in. And I think in the end it was, I mean, you never can tell, because we didn't get the nice complicated machine, and then it was a very easy machine in the end, but it also did the job. So, and then sometimes you have other outside factors which forces you to adopt your design, which you came up initially. Then you have safety requirements and all the other shit which comes in, which limits your artistic freedom. But then it's also, you have to be very flexible with a lot of things. So you can also you have to fight for like the main ideas to really get them across, which are important. So you need to know what you can change and what you can't change. So, and that's always like a negotiation process with the theater itself, because normally I do a model, then we work through the piece within the model, and then I present the model, or we present the concept to the house, and then I have as a set designer, you have another date afterwards with the workshop where you meet, you present the idea again, and then they come up with, okay, this is too big, this needs to be smaller, we can't build it. And then you start to manufacture the first samples with surfaces and stuff. So it's a long process normally to create a set. And I'm not building it anymore by myself. If I would do like very small shows, but I always paint something last night before the opening, secretly by myself.
Yeah.
So this is just like.
So do you work with as a set designer? It's always your creative idea. It's not but then what you're saying is that it morphs as the production takes place.
But it's on me to guide this process as well.
So you're in charge of that.
Yeah.
And so
if
a compromise is made, you agree to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, you always have to find a solution. With the production I did in Bavaria, I couldn't oversee the production phase because I was in America with another project, and they don't have a head of workshops because they're small and they don't see to have the need of a position like that, which is not clever. So they built something and they built it in the wrong way. And then they showed me some pictures and I said, like, why did you build that way? That's not what I wanted. That's neither how it looks in the model nor how it looks on the plans. So it was about detailing, but sometimes the details is important for me. And then I said, you can't change these details without coming back to me. But there is no person coming back to me because they don't have this position of communication. And then, so I made a new version to incorporate what they built with what I wanted. And they had to redo half of it.
Oh my God.
So it's not a big piece, but it's just like it was a big wall. It was like 12 by 6 meters, which is a big piece of scenery. And you would assume people would before we start building it the entire way, we should maybe come back to the artist and ask.
And ask.
Would think so.
Yeah, you would think.
But they didn't have this idea. They thought they know what I wanted because we also had a meeting, but it's mainly communication. It's a lot of communication if you work in theatre.
So you've done traditional operas and experimental works, right? Or more contemporary.
Yeah.
What was the most traditional opera you've done? Maybe the Rossini?
Traditional.
Maybe not in terms of set design, but in terms of repertoire.
The piece itself, it would be probably La Cenerentola, because this is around for like 200 years.
Yeah,
now.
right, yeah.
So it's an opera evergreen. So,
and so you just mentioned you were working in the States last summer. You were working at Bard College, right?
Yes.
On a Honegger opera?
Korngold.
Korngold, right, it was Korngold.
Wunder der Heliane.
Yeah, first performance in the States.
Yeah,
right?
sang in German, so Jewish composer. It was interesting.
Was it a different working process in the States as compared to working in Europe?
Not so much in the beginning. In the end, it turned out to be different, but it's also more the communication because it's close to German culture, but communication is also different. Which was interesting because I learned a lot. What you say, what you mean, what comes across, how you read each other. And so it was challenging, but I really liked that too. So we worked with a Swiss director who worked already many times in the States. So he was guiding the process. And then also the house, they are experienced because they do this since 20 years, but it's not an opera house which produces all the time. So
no,
it's a summer festival
it's a summer
thing.
Festival,
and this is definitely another working setup, which you have to adopt your design and also what you want, because you do not have a fully run workshop all the time in the background to adopt things. So you have to be very, very precise with what you want.
So that must have been fun, though.
Yeah.
Nice to be in the States. It's a beautiful part of the country up there on the
very
Hudson River.
pristine.
Yeah,
it's almost unreal.
It is. I love it up there in Bard College.
I bet so.
Yeah. So, have you ever had any disasters? I hate to bring up something, but something humorous or funny.
I mean, no one died yet.
No one died yet.
No one died yet.
Knock on. There's no wood here.
Yeah, knock on something.
Oh,
because like it was close to, like we had almost serious accidents with one show because it's so hectic. Like Cenerentola, the design is very hectic. It's moving all the time. All the changes are on open stage. There's no curtain. Everything has to be on time. Stefan wanted everything according to the music, so it's a very, very difficult show to run, and a lot of things can happen or cannot happen at the same time. So, but if everything works, it's beautiful and comes together very well. My last opening in Bavaria was kind of disastrous because the general was very good, and we also had a lot of effects, and it's also a moving set. So, like when things are changing all the time, so everything was in the fly bars and it was moving up and down, and the machinery broke down at a certain with the first how you say Verwandlung. The first change of state, it wasn't quite on time, and then the machinery just blocked, and that was in the third minute of the show, and then everything was late. Everything was. I just died in the audience. I was just like, oh my god, nothing was on time. Some things didn't work, and it was the opening. So it was.
Did anybody notice?
Like. Friends and colleagues of mine who were in the show, they said some changes are a little bit rough. So
you have very nice friends.
I do have very nice friends. The normal audience couldn't really tell some things because the things which just didn't happen because the mechanism didn't work. You don't see them because they don't work. So if you don't know them, they are there. You don't miss them, right? So it's something else. But we had one, like the flybars were still down, and the next scene they should go all up again, and the extras would enter the stage, and the extras were entering the stage while all the flybars are still on the ground, which is a very difficult and dangerous thing to do.
Dangerous, yeah.
Because on the flybars there were like stripes of foil attached, and if you step on them and they go up, that's also not very. I mean, most things people do not think of because you are familiar with that. Then one of the foil maybe just rips, which is not the problem. But the flybar gets into movement while going up, and then it swings up and down. And then there are lamps, and if the flybar moves towards the lamp and these things, and then you don't want to. Like it's always this like thinking what else can happen if something like this doesn't happen. It's not like it.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you sit in the audience, you don't know what's going on backstage.
Because you're not familiar with the things.
And then you go backstage and you go on the stage after a performance or something.
It's a factory.
And you see all this equipment.
It's like a clock with a lot of mechanics and with a lot of things happening at the same time. And you have there's a lot of things behind stage which happen all the time. Of course, you do not see. And if these things doesn't run well.
But that's the magic of theater.
That's the magic of theater. But with the opening, it was a bit sad. So because we worked so hard on this show, and it also
it got repaired.
Yeah. So the second show went smoothly, and everyone was happy. So, but it's also for the house. So it was a bit sad that the opening was not as good as it could be. But now all the shows run perfectly, and everything is on point now. Maybe sometimes
that's
good to have that. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So. What is your future? Did you have some projects coming up?
Not so much yet, but which is also normal at this time. So all the coming season are now compiled. So there will be things coming up.
Yeah, it's how it works.
Yeah. So it's also good because I worked a lot now, and I was traveling like 7.5 months last year.
Yeah, you've been away a lot.
Yeah, and if there's not so much things upcoming, I'm pretty thankful to have a break as well.
Yeah,
because I think you also need to have breaks to come back to your creative core in a way to like be able to get out. You have to have these movements of in and out. I just was out for now a very, very long time.
I know that feeling. You know, you create an album and then I just need 3 or 4 months just to clear my mind.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah,
at least.
Just not to try and write some music because. It's time for a change.
Yeah, and also not good if you do it all the time.
Yeah,
you have to
You got to come fresh to it. Yeah, so
that's true. So
I'm
thankful for having a break now. So,
well, that's good.
Because this is also the point. Now I barely work in Berlin. This is the city I used to live in, and I'm not happening here. I'm constantly going away.
Well, Berlin's a great city to be in, so it's...
That's true. So I'm glad to be back on holiday.
I know you love it, and I know you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's just so much fun, and I know your circle of friends, and they're wonderful people,
Yeah,
and it's just...
I haven't seen anyone barely for the last week.
Yeah, so that's... So.
But most of them are also traveling. Like
I know.
Before, and this is also a way all the time.
We all move here to be here, and then we all end up traveling, it's like crazy.
I was joking with a colleague of mine, we can share a flat because we don't need to have, because whenever I'm in town, he's out of town.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Well, So, well, I really appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun, and I think it'll be very interesting for people to hear your side of what goes on behind the scenes. Yeah, because that's an unusual take on the theater and the shows and everything. And so, really, thanks so much for coming by.
You're welcome.
Great to see you. Okay. Thank you so much for stopping by Berlin Conversations. If you enjoyed it, please like it and follow so you don't miss any of the upcoming interesting guests that I will have over the next few weeks. Thank you. Take care. Have a good night or good day or good weekend or whatever. Okay. Take care. Bye.